Good evening and welcome to Live to Be Well. It's so good to be with you tonight. I'm Dr. Kim Logan-Nowlin, your host, and along with my co-host, ML6, Michael Logan, who'll be joining us in a little while. First of all, I want to extend my deepest sympathy to the Boss family and the loss of Stephen Twitch Boss. It's been in the media for the last week, but not only to the Boss family, but to others who've lost loved ones. Twitch touched many people's lives through his smile, through his hats, through his dancing, where he even met his wife on a TV popular show, You Think You Can Dance. You know, it's a difficult time for the community at large because he was a gentleman and he was an African American male. So my topic tonight leads in because of this situation. You know, who is the masked man? What was going on in Stephen Boss's life? And we don't know. We don't know his last moments, what he was thinking. People have tried to, summarize this thing and put their own take on it. And only the Lord knows, and only He knows before He died. But I do say this that we need to be praying for our African American males. We need to be praying for our families. But our African American males, they need to be able to have a support and a community. I know how important it is to have a community going through things such as losing my husband, breast cancer. I have support groups. I have women. I have a lot of things in place. But then 80% of my clientele are men. They come to me because they are seeking a community, a safe place with me. I'd like to share with you some information that will help us better prepare for our topic tonight. And then I'll be bringing my guests on so that they can engage with me. Why do men hide their emotions? If I can share with you, then we're going to go to some of your responses. And I want to say thank you because your responses were and are phenomenal. And you have really come to the core of what we were dealing with this topic. So I want to say thank you. So why do men hide their emotions? There's no argument that women are more likely to show their emotions than men. From an early age, men are conditioned, that's the word, conditioned to believe that expressing their feelings is out of character with the male identity. They've been taught, be tough, man up. And I have a real issue with that man up. What is man up? And I know that my two guests, who are definitely community activists and very profound in their field, are going to deal with that. So doing so can ruin their image of being strong, and also it can become toxic. Specifically, men are told that crying in front of other people will threaten their masculinity. So it's wrong for a man to cry, at the birth of his child, or cry when he loses his mother, cry when you lose your mother-in-law. You shouldn't cry when your son comes out of prison and then graduates from college and has done something with his life. The same can be said about mental health. Statistically, women are more likely to get diagnosed with depression or anxiety. However, men also deal with mental health disorder and mental distress. Over 30% of men will experience a period of depression. Did you hear what I said? Say 30% at some point during their lifetime. And about 9% of men report having feelings of depression or anxiety every day. The men who come to see me are dealing with anxiety and stress and depression and suicide ideation. Just because men are told to hide their emotion doesn't mean they don't have them. Research shows that men experience emotions at the same level that women do, the same level. But because it's not socially acceptable for a man to cry when he is sad, it can make it seem like men don't experience sadness at all. that men are disconnected. Men don't feel. Men don't know how to engage, and help us. Okay. Then it says, in fact, men who experience sadness or grief are more likely to channel those feelings into different emotions that are seen as more socially accepted. For instance, a man who is experiencing sadness or depression might be more likely to act aggressively or get angry over something small rather than cry. There's nothing wrong with me. Leave me alone. And you see it even in the second and third generation. You ask your son, your male son, your son, what's wrong? Nothing wrong with me. You want to talk about it? I don't have anything to talk about. You can come to me. I don't need to talk. I gotta go. And then that could lead into different triggers that could cause substance abuse, that could cause you to have suicidal ideation. You are no longer connected to your parents. You are dealing with things. When children go through divorce, girls will cry, but outward. Boys will just shut down, or if they a loved one, they lose grandmother, nothing's wrong. I'm not crying. You are crying. No, I'm not. I just got something in my eye. So this is what we're dealing with. So again, emotions that are associated with dominance or strength are viewed as more masculine, even if the underlying emotion fueling the behavior is different. But when men are told to hide their emotions at all costs, those feelings have to go somewhere. Usually, they compensate by acting in a way that is more stereotypically masculine. So I'm gonna get high, I'll smoke, I'll drink, I'll party, I'll get in trouble, I'll join a gang, because I can't show that I am weak. So getting into a gang where my peers, that makes me feel good. I'm a man, especially I shot somebody, to be able to be accepted into this organization. So I want to bring on my guests and I want to bring on ML6 as we talk about leading, authority in his own right. Hey, ML6, how are you, darling?
Greetings.
Good. We have a lot to talk about tonight. We have two special guests. I'm gonna introduce, my dear friend, and I will let you introduce, our other guests. All right.
Okay.
But our first guest is he's been on Live to Be Well before. He's a godfather to my daughters. He is one of my dear classmates. We've known each other going on now into 50 years almost. So I want to bring him in, Mr. Kenneth Anderson, counselor extraordinary, just everything, just a man of God. How are you, my dear friend?
I'm doing well, fam. What's going on? It's good to see both of you tonight. And I'm just looking forward to being in this space with you all at this time to talk about this very important conversation.
And listen, in ML6, I've already secured him for October 14th for our men's conference. Yes, yes. And Micha is on me too. Make sure we get everything in order. So listen, let's get into it. Who's wearing the mask? Why are men masking? What happened that, Mrs. Boss didn't see the red flags, or not just her husband, but in all different scenario situations that we don't even know. So I want to share some questions, but I want to start a little bit with this, and then Kenny, I'll bring you back. Let's go to a couple of the responses first, okay? Let's go. We're ready because it was hot. It was hot. All right. We want to get into what are we hiding? Who is masking? Okay, here we go. Your thoughts. Why do men hide, mask their emotions? Amanda Kidd said historically they were taught to suppress their emotions. It started with when fathers told their toddler boys to man up and don't cry. What a tragedy. I remember asking my husband to never tell our sons they can't cry. Thank goodness. Our four sons aren't afraid to release their emotion and shed tears when needed. All right. We have a lot of comments. We're going to break it up. Thomas Maycock, is because we as men try to be the strong ones. So we act like things really don't bother us. But deep inside, we are hurting. But we really don't want anyone to see us, no one to see about us. So we just let it go, or we just sit there and start going and thought some old stuff that we have. So in other words, he's saying we just let it go. Teresa Petaway, learned behavior of fake masculinity. They have been totally culturally over the years. Okay. Men are not taught, allowed, Sandra King, or made comfortable with expressing their feelings. All right. There never been a time and space where men can be that vulnerable without other men or women considering them weak. ML6, take the next question.
Okay, so this is from what's his name? Dwin for Static Adusi. Natural
Hmm.
admit to easily let it go. TJ Smart, it's peace. I'd have to agree with whatever Lauren said up top. The next question is the best answers I've come from a book titled The Will of Change Men, Masculinity and Love by Bell Hooks. So let's just start answering some of the questions that have already been asked and answered. It seems like there's a lot. And from what I'm getting is it's that men just don't have safe places to have conversation. That
Hmm.
seems like the focal point of what the responses have been to the questions. And so I'm going to just jump in for that just a little bit before I let Kenny Anderson kind of take over the lead. And in just a moment, my former pastor, my friend, Pastor Adrian Davis, AD. I'm not really sure what he goes by these days, but he is definitely in the room. So we're going to let him in very, very soon. And he has actually created a journal for men. And if you are a man and you are listening to this show, you need to get his journal. It is for men. If you are a female and you have a man in your life, you need to get this journal from Adrian and Davis. But I'll let him talk all about that. But I feel that a lot of the reasons why men don't have a lot of spaces is because from years past, it was as if they really weren't allowed to share. And I think that pattern carried on over time. And then it became a way of life. And so the suppression and the whole working through things and not really communicating, where women are emotional and we do this and do this. But here's what I'm finding out: men are real emotional. Men are very emotional. They just don't have. They just let it out in anger, and it's received more in anger, and that's how they put it out. Where rather in just basic, simple communication. A lot of men really don't know how to express themselves unless they're not angry.
Mm.
Okay, go ahead and talk about it.
Ready for me?
I'm
I'm ready.
ready.
No, listen, I appreciate and I want to validate everything that's been said already because I think one of the most important things that we need to focus on in this kind of a conversation is that everyone speaks from their own unique perspective. Even though that there are common elements of what we may experience, everyone still has a very unique perspective and should have their authentic voice attached to this conversation. So my authentic voice comes from a space where I understand that this process really begins, as was suggested in some of the comments, in the earliest stages of our lives, where boys are socialized to be tough. Boys are socialized to not express their feelings in terms of what many people would then define as being weak or vulnerable. Men or boys, once again, are socialized to get over it, to
Mm.
not express themselves as little girls do. In fact, um, when little boys fall, I think that there have been research studies that have shown that if a good little girl falls, a parent is more likely to rush towards the little girl, cradle that little girl, and nurture them in such a way that they understand that there's something about the experience that was awful, terrible, but it's going to be okay as a consequence of that. So they can be in that space and they can cry, they can express themselves more and more and more. A little boy falls, more times than not, they're going to be told, get up, brush it off, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And
Mhm.
little boys who cry, especially around other little boys, are going to be teased. They're going to
Mhm.
be picked on. They're going to get called names. And so, as a consequence of that, there's an internalization process where boys now begin to mask their feelings as a consequence of everything that comes down the line. So, now let's just fast forward for a moment to what's up, AD? Good to
What's
see
up,
my
man?
man here tonight in the house. Um, Good to see you, brother. And I'm glad to be and honored to be on the stage with you once again, as we've shared the stage in the past. I'll fast forward for just a moment. One of the most courageous people I've ever known is Naomi Osaka, who immortalized the words, "It's okay not to be okay." Now, let's juxtapose those early experiences of boys being socialized to be tough, don't express yourself, don't show your feelings, just act like as if it didn't happen. And now we're older, so now we got to man up. And if I show myself to be vulnerable, then I'm, in essence, demonstrating a weakness. I'm demonstrating a flaw. Society will tell you, by and large, that's not acceptable. So men are not likely to express themselves among themselves, meaning among their friends. So when the peer groups get together, we're not talking about how we feel. We're talking about the game. We're talking about how many points somebody scored. We're talking about who won the championship. We're talking about maybe relationship stuff, but we're not necessarily talking about how we feel. And the really damaging piece of that for me is that this also bleeds into not just our emotional selves, but it also bleeds into our physical selves. I was talking to someone earlier saying how men need to really hold ourselves accountable more for our physical health. But that's not a conversation that we typically have. If I feel a certain way, I feel bad, I'm under the weather, I may ascribe that to some kind of, I got the flu, I got a cold or something like that. If I find some kind of distortion on my body, I'm not going to talk about it. I may wonder about it, and then I might go out and check it out, but maybe I won't, because doing that is going to show me to be vulnerable. As a consequence of that, we are consistently placed in situations where when we learn about health conditions that we have, we're way behind the process. We haven't been proactive in terms of our health, and now we're sicker than we would have been had we spoke up about these things. So the issue of not speaking up transcends just those emotional and mental things that we experience, but it also impacts our physical selves as well.
Let me say this, Kenny. We're both mental health counselors. And, we've been in the field a long time. And we see by not being able to communicate these feelings, it leads to other things in their life. And one of the things, not having healthy relationships, not being able to convey how you feel in the relationship, because I'm trying to appease you, the woman, but yet I'm not being able to get what I need. I just had a phone call a minute ago. Why is it that I just had a therapy session? Why is it that I have to be the one to initiate? Why do I have to be the one to say, may I hold your hand? Men need nurturing also. Men need to know that they're loved also, but they don't have a safe place to go because, again, I've been told to what? I can't say anything about how I feel.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about how I feel. It's all about what you need and feel. So it causes us to have major problems. And I see it with the men who are coming to my office for therapy because they feel less than a man because they don't have a safe place to just share their feelings inside their own homes.
Yeah.
They can't even talk in their own homes. And
Yeah.
so growing up, it wasn't allowed. Now that I'm married, I can't do it. So where can I go? All right. So listen,
Yeah.
once again, we have Kenny Anderson from Huntsville, Alabama. And now we're going to talk a little bit. Micha, bring in our very own Adrian Davis. Let's do some talk with you. Yes, our dear friend, one of mine. I just look at him as a son. Yes, I do.
Oh, as I said earlier, former pastor, but I think he's getting back into pastoring. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but he has really been on a mission for several years, but really over the last 2 or 3 years, as he's had to deal with his own personal issues of grief and like really transitioning into that and owning that as a man and being transparent with that as a man. He has a journal for men that I'm going to let him talk about. But we just want to hear some insight from you. Which one to call you on here?
You can just call me Adrian, AD, whatever you want to call me. It's perfectly fine.
We're just going to talk a little bit about just spinning off what you heard, what Kenny Anderson had to say, and
For sure.
we want like your take on it, and we want to hear from you. This is for men. This is about men. My mom and I are going to kind of take the back seat on this one from here on out. We're going to kind of let you and Kenny Anderson have the floor to really help and speak to these men. Like, Mom, we're going to listen tonight.
Yes, Micah.
Well, for one, thank you for having me on. I'm extremely grateful to be here. You kind of see me moving around. I'm kind of setting up my camera so I can be able to see, because my camera's here, but then my computer's here. So I'm looking at you all's response. So I'm trying to get things set up over here. So I apologize for that. And Kenny, man, it's so good to see you. Secretly, Kenny has been, I tell people all the time when people ask me, oh, Kenny Anderson, I'm like, yeah, that's like my uncle. Ken Anderson is the cool uncle with so much wisdom. I did my second leadership conference in Huntsville, and so it's been great. And so, and Dr. Kim has been like mom number 2. She's amazing, and I love her. And then Micha has just been been one of my best friends and a part of my life for the past, close to 10 years. And so it's been everyone on here I have personal relationship with. So, and I love this topic because I'm very passionate about this topic. I get into a lot of debates about this topic because I'm passionate about it. I'm a man. I know these struggles, and exactly what Kenny said is exactly right. And what Dr. Kim said and what Micha said is exactly right. We have been, it's almost like in order to be a man, you almost have to, what we call man, you almost have to deny your own feelings and your own self before you are listed as a man. And what I mean by that is it becomes about service to others. We say toxic and dysfunctional things to little boys and don't realize that we're raising them in dysfunction or raising them in toxicity environments, and we giving them the language for them to live in a space of trauma and live in a space of denying what they feel from their childhood. Kenny brought up the situation, like if a female, if a little girl falls, we grab her and we nurture her, and we say, oh, are you okay? And everything's gonna be okay. And she feels welcome, she feels nurtured, and she is not punished for natural emotion. Like, she's not punished for, if she starts crying, we don't tell her, woman up. Well, that's not even a word. It's not even a word in our vernacular. It's not even in our culture. But our culture will tell us, for a little boy that falls, we'll look at him. We won't nurture him. We won't pick him up because we'll say that that's coddling. And then what does that do? It allows him to say, well, if I fall in life, what do I have to do? I have to pick myself up. Then what does that also do? It rejects community. That when I have emotional space or an emotional place, I'm going to reject community because I don't want people to, be into this space because, I got to man up. I got to be tough. I got to be strong all the time. And then we're raising our little boys to be dysfunctional men. And then it's like, once they get to a certain age, they're automatically supposed to know how to communicate what they feel. And it's like, but nobody taught us. So we have a world, especially in the African-American culture, of Black men that are 40, 50, but in all actuality, 18 in maturity, because they don't know how to be at a place of consistent communication of what they may feel. And we're just, we're taught to be, providers, be protectors, but we're weak if we need protecting.
Mm-hmm.
So we are taught to be, but we're never taught to receive. We're never taught to receive nurture. We're never taught to receive protection. We're never taught to receive help. And I'll say this, and we can kind of dive, into a little bit more into the conversation. But and I asked my one of my best friends. He sent me a voice memo today. And I asked him, could I mention this on this particular platform? And I think it's strategic by God that he allowed this conversation to happen. One of my best friends, he's going through a lot of things. He lives in the South right now. And he sent me a voice memo, legit crying today. and just like, man, everything I'm trying is not working. And it was so crazy because I had just had a moment this morning with myself, just crying, letting emotions out. I've been at this space. And before, I'm on a public platform talking about the fact that I was crying this morning. Do you not understand how difficult that has been for me to do in other settings, to be honest, that I exuded natural emotion? Like, we want to hide the fact that we cry. Do we hide the fact that we laugh? Do we hide the fact that we were happy today? Do we hide the fact and because we come across and say, well, if I mention to people that I cried, I show up as weak, and it's like, no, you show up as human. And we don't even know how to be human. We equate manhood to machine. Mm-hmm. I gotta be a machine. I gotta hide these emotions, even from our best friends. My best friend, he sent me this, and he was just bawling, crying. Man, everything I'm trying is failing. I'm trying to be there for my wife, trying to be there for my kids, trying to be a provider. And bro, I'm tired. I'm tired, bro. I'm tired. And I heard depression. I heard suicidal innuendos. I heard, and I called him, and then there was a moment in our conversation. I said this. I said, man, I hate to hear you this way. And immediately I said, no. I said, let me rephrase that. I love to hear you this way.
Yeah, that's right.
I love to hear you this way. Mm-hmm. And I said, because I'm glad that you feel safe enough to communicate these true emotions. I want to hear you this way versus me hearing that my best friend committed suicide. I would much rather hear your tears than to preach your funeral. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that I'm hearing you this way, because I want you to release these emotions and release these thoughts and release these things to me or to somewhere. And I think that a lot of us, even as African-American men, now, counseling is more communicated and talked about amongst the African-American culture, but we still have a lot of work to do concerning it. And so making people feel safe and making men feel safe to communicate those emotions, we're tapping into it, but we got a lot of work to do. And I think that we have to, and I think it's the undoing of so many years. And even in our verbiage, we have to stop raising our boys to, I'm a byproduct of being raised in a place where, you ask, my uncles used to ask me, like, how many girlfriends you got growing up? You got one girlfriend? What's wrong with you? You got one girlfriend? We raise our African-American boys in toxicity and then expect for them to be right once they hit a certain age. And I think that we have a lot of work to do, but I think that creating safe spaces to say, I'm not okay. And like Kenny Anderson said, that phrase of it's okay to not be okay, we have to make that a common thread. And we have to make that a thing amongst our African-American culture.
I know. Can I just jump in 1 second?
One second, and then
I'm gonna give it to Kenny. The other day in my office, a man came in for therapy, and all he could do for the first session was cry.
Yes.
I sat at my desk and I just said, all right, no problem. And I said, you just go ahead and cry. He said, I'm sorry. I said, you don't have to apologize.
Yeah. And Dr. Kim, let me say this right here. I don't know why. And that's why I said, like, a natural emotion, we apologize for.
Yes.
I tell people all the time, I've come to this place. I don't apologize for laughing.
That's it.
It's a natural emotion. Like if it was quiet and I just bust out laughing, nobody's saying, "Oh my God, sorry guys, sorry, I'm laughing." No, people probably gonna look at that person and start laughing too. Like they're like, what's so funny? What they watch it, they looking at someone on YouTube or they looking at someone on TikTok or Instagram. Why are we apologizing for a natural emotion?
A natural. The second time he came in, do you know what he did? He cried. He cried for an hour and 20 minutes. And I said, you know what I did? I said, listen, do you mind if I eat my lunch? Because I was hungry. I said, would you like some of my sandwich? Now, I'm vegan, And I said, did you eat today? You know, and he said, no. And I said, come on, have some of my sandwich. And he was still crying. The third time he came in for his session, you know, he said, I said, come on, let's get out of this office. And I took him downstairs to a men's clothing store. Two black men, when you all come to Detroit, you got to come visit the store. And and I took him in and I bought him a suit. And I said, now, you don't have to apologize for anything. I want you to receive this. Receive this. We tend to think that is not, it's something wrong to make sure that this man is healthy. Or, you know, well, why would you buy him a suit? You know, why would you do that for him? He's not your husband. How do you think somebody would feel about that? That was not my concern. I was doing non-traditional therapeutic services, okay? So Kenny, I just had to share that when Adrian, when you said that I had to deal with that. Listen, let a friend know, let someone know we want to hear from you. You're kind of quiet out there. Go to YouTube at Dr. Kim Logan-Nowlin. Come on live. What are you thinking out there? Do you agree with us? Disagree with us? Come on, chit chat with us and talk to us. Kenny, give me some feedback. Let's continue this conversation.
Yeah, I want to give a real world experience about crying for myself. And I also want to contextualize that by saying that crying is therapeutic. There are literally toxins that we purge ourselves from as a consequence of shedding those tears.
Yes,
so no
sir.
one should ever apologize for that experience.
Mm-hmm.
In 1992, I lost my dad. I received a phone call from my mom on a Saturday morning while both he and I were preparing for church. He was in New Jersey. I was in Huntsville. My mom called and told me he had had a massive heart attack and died. In the 2 hours between that information and me sort of processing that and trying to figure out what's going on, I decided I too needed to go to church. And I want to give a shout out to my brother, James Sutherland, who is probably not listening tonight. But I think one of the challenges that we have as men is that we don't often affirm people in our lives that we need to affirm. So I'm going to affirm James Sutherland was sitting next to me in church that day. And when they announced from the pulpit that my father had passed, I broke out into tears. I mean, I started crying so hard in that moment. And I turned towards James, who was sitting on my right. And James opened up his arms and embraced me.
Yeah.
And we had an embrace, a sustained embrace in that moment of pain and process that felt so good.
Yes, sir.
That did not need to be defined or explained by anyone except for James
sir.
and I in that moment.
Yes, sir.
And I want to empower somebody right now who is suppressing those tears.
Yeah.
Somebody who's saying that I'm not going to show anybody my real emotions, who is dealing with the physical and emotional and perhaps even the spiritual pain of circumstances in your life. I want to let you know that it's okay to let it go and cry. I spoke at my mother-in-law's funeral just this past Saturday.
Mercy.
And in the midst of speaking about her, I started crying. Just like AD just said, it's natural to cry when you feel hurt. It's natural to cry when you feel pain. And I refuse to apologize to anyone for that circumstance, whatever socialization has taught us. So here's our responsibility. I don't blame people who don't do it. What I try to do is I try to get into a position of educating people, helping them understand that, number one, it's okay to be who we are. It's okay to express ourselves, that there's nothing gender specific about crying. Crying is a natural emotion that is often triggered by something that we feel and experience in our lives. And more times than not, by letting that water out, letting those tears flow, we're going to end up on the other side feeling a whole lot better in that process. I also want to say this real quickly. And this is in relationship to all of the conversation chat I'm seeing about DJ Twitch online, which to me, quite honestly, some of it is quite disturbing because it shows me just how much people don't understand about these kinds of experiences.
That's right.
Yeah.
the mask that people wear is not always a mask of darkness. The mask is often a mask of light.
Talk, man.
And the light can be extremely bright.
Yes, sir.
So bright that when these things happen, it confuses us because we've equated the happiness and the joy on the outside without having discovered the pain on the inside. And so when we see people, and I've had this experience, and I wrote this on a post on Facebook, I said, in my counseling experience, I had 2 of my clients committed suicide. One of them was deeply depressed, and I was not stunned by her suicide. The other one was on top of the world on the last Friday of his life. He was happy. He was engaging with people. He looked like he had everything together. And when I came back to work that Monday, I found that he had taken his life over the weekend. Some people are signaling their intention to reconcile their pain through their joy that you see, because we've not taken the time to go deep enough inside to understand that pain. Now, let me also say, because a lot of people have beat themselves up saying, why didn't anybody see it and what could have been done? You may not see it.
That's right.
This sense of, I'm going to automatically know when somebody's feeling a certain kind of way is a myth. And what people need to understand in moments like these is this, that there's a reason for intimacy in relationships. Intimacy helps us get to know people at levels below the surface.
That's right.
Because most people live their lives around other people on the surface.
On the surface.
They're wearing the mask.
That's
Yes,
right.
So
sir.
we have no clue as to what's going on. The mass murderer living next door to you, who's burying bodies in the backyard, keeps a well-manicured lawn, eats with their family at a restaurant, takes care of their car, picks up the neighbor's trash and cuts other people's lawns. You never know what's going on in people's lives just because of what you see.
That's right.
So we have to get out of this thing of thinking we know people just because we see people.
Yes, sir.
We have to get out of this thing of saying we can interpret what other people are feeling and emoting just because of what they're expressing to us.
Yes,
And we have to
sir.
really take the time to get to know people. And I think one of the best ways to get to know people is, first of all, by having a deeper, more intimate relationship with ourselves. Because some of us are in denial about the pain that we experience and the process of expressing what we need to express.
That's it. That's it. I can't tell you how many times, and I'm going to be quiet again. Micah said to me, "Mommy, you are in pain." When I saw my husband dying, and he said, "Well, I mean, my husband shed tears." And I remember Micah being on the phone, and she called you, Adrian, and Dad just died, But he cried. He said, "Why do I have to die?" He was not afraid to show his emotions in front of his children, in front of me. He cried throughout those months. And I agree with you. It is important as mental health professionals that we are able to see and that intimacy. When people come to me for therapy, I am developing an intimate relationship with me and with them. Week after week after week, I'm gaining more knowledge about them. That's why I'm able to know today we're going to go to the park. Today we're going to walk around the Fisher building. Today we're going to go have lunch. We're not going to do this inside these 4 walls. Or I know to sit there and just let that person cry. And do you know, after 4 sessions of him crying, the 5th, 6th, 7th, the 20th, 30th session, he is a better man today because he is no longer hiding his emotions. He told his little boy the other day, "It's all right." He said, "Daddy, it's all right." He fell off his little motorcycle and he skinned his knee. And Daddy said, let me, come here, let me look at it. He said, "Go ahead, does it hurt?" He said, "Cry. Go ahead and cry." He said, "It's okay, Daddy, for me to cry." He said, "Cry. It hurts." So he is trying to change this myth that you don't have to be this way, what society says. Okay.
But Mom, going back to with Daddy, I think even you watching Daddy go through what he went through was a eye opener for you, because I remember it was one time period where you weren't processing that he was in pain, because it was difficult for you to see him like that for within yourself. And then you saw him and you were like, "You're not in pain." And he's like, "Yes, I am." And I remember being home that weekend and I had to tell you, like, "Mom, he's in pain." And I think watching him and having you have that experience of nurturing him through those weeks and those 2 months really was an eye opener for you to really see how men even process certain pain. So that was an eye opener for you to be even a better therapist for the men that come into, because daddy used to handle all the men and you would handle the female.
Right.
But going through that process with daddy allowed you to be better for the men that come into the office now. I do wholeheartedly believe that.
And I agree. And do you know what the men said to me, Kenny and Adrian? We trusted your husband, and my husband wanted this conference. He said, this is going to be so important. But he said, these men have told me, they said, we trusted your husband. We now trust you. I said, well, I can refer you to a male therapist. No, we want you because you're an extension of what we were able to do and express ourselves. Adrian, let's talk about the spiritual component to what men need as far as their growth in order to get this breakthrough.
Yeah, for one, I'm loving this conversation, and I'm loving the transparency of this conversation. And uh, I I want to just take a moment before I get into the spiritual components and celebrate.
Okay. All right. That's AD is frozen here. Okay. All right. We'll take him out and bring him back in. He's going to say something. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's talk about, he's going to come back in. All right. We want to talk about that spiritual component, but he was going to say something. But, Kenny, you were here with me. And it's no difference in the emotional impact that we go through as women. But again, we've got permission to go ahead and go through those emotions. It's okay for us as we can sit there and cry. Even when I'm sitting in church, I'm crying, I'm bawling, I am just excited to be in the house of God, and I see men sitting up like this. Don't you all feel the spirit? Come on now, and nobody is in crying, and nobody's getting up expressing. No, we can't do that. I'm the head.
But that's all part of it. Okay, Adrian is back. What were you gonna say?
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what just happened with my computer. It was just cycling. But I wanted to celebrate Kenny because I think at times when men do share vulnerable moments and what they felt in vulnerable moments, I love to celebrate that because I want other men to know that your vulnerability is needed and celebrated all at the same time. And so sharing that story resonates with me for other reasons, but thank you for sharing that. And I said the spiritual component, because for one, we've been wired, especially as men, not to share emotion, right? And so not to be vulnerable, not to cry. And even in moments in church, even in moments where worship is going on, and even in moments where things are happening, and then also like myself and Dr. E. Dewey Smith had this conversation, and when I said this, he was like, I never thought about it this way. I said that I believe that even pastors have almost started to cater messages towards women because their ego wants a response. So when we want to hear amens and we want to hear, man, you preaching, we don't get that from men. So what we tend to do is we'll cater a message, or we'll say a thing for, you're in a relationship, and if he leave you, everything and it's just like, that's going to garner a response. And so we have become almost a prisoner to, we've almost become a prisoner to the pew and how we present from the pulpit. But I think that what men need from a spiritual component to be transparent and to be honest with themselves, for one, we do need a not a religious aspect of relationship with God. We need a real relationship with God. And when I say that, I mean not the formalities. I believe in, formal, prayer and practices and things of that nature, but I also believe in my daily communication with God and being totally honest and open and transparent with that level of communication with God. And I communicate with God. If I'm laying in the bed, I'm talking to God. If I'm walking, like not the formalities of it. And I think that we made our spiritual walk so mystical and so deep that it becomes a deterrent for men. And so they say, well, I don't know how to do that, or I don't know how to be, that vulnerable. I don't know how to be that open. So, I leave that church stuff to the women. And it's like almost, if you're not in tune with your emotions, like church isn't for you. Our relationship with God isn't for you. So I think we need a deeper relationship with God. On the practical side, we need a strong community. And when I say community, ladies, let me just say this to the ladies. I believe that it's almost criminal to think that, and I know you're nurturers by nature, it's almost criminal to think that you could be everything to your man. Your man needs community up with other men. And now and now even within our culture, I may get into some trouble, Dr. Kim, just tell them to email me. I'm used to this. But now men don't even want to have healthy relationships with other men because society tells us, well, if you hugging another man, you could be homosexual. So now in a situation where Kenny needed that hug from another man, he needed that embrace from another man. We shy away from it because we're like, I don't want to come across like, can't, no, I'm not going, but we need male community. One of the things that I admire, Dr. Kim, about your husband was his ability to get out there and golf. Like, I'm like, shoot, I wish I'm still trying to, I'm new age young man, so I don't, I ain't got into golf just yet. We could play some 2K and go do some hoops, but men need recreational things with other men to build man community. It's certain things that he needs, and it has nothing to do with same-sex attraction. If that's your thing, that's your thing. But I'm just saying, like, has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with community. Men need community. We really, really do. If men did not need community, and I don't want to, make it a sermon, but if men did not need community, then why did Jesus build disciples?
Come on now.
If Jesus's main point, for one, I want us to understand that Jesus' main reason in coming to earth was to die. Was to die, literally, was to redeem mankind. Everything else that he did was to show us models of certain aspects. He did ministry and he did miracles just to show us that he could and who he was. Everything else was extracurricular almost, but he builds community. When he goes into ministry, he builds community. He builds people. He builds disciples. He says, I need people around me that can see this and understand this. And so I think that men need walks with God, relationship with God. We need community. We need spaces where we don't have to perform.
That's it.
Like, even, Kenny, man, I'm so glad that you talked about with Twitch and, just the things that we're seeing online and people talking about, I saw a post, Dr. Jamal Brown did a post, and I saw a comment under his post that said, because he put up the dancing video that Twitch did on TikTok 24 hours before the suicidal situation. And people was like, yeah, something about this just don't seem right. And it's like, you think just because he wasn't dancing, he wasn't hurting? Yeah. You think just because he hit record on his phone and he got in front of the phone and performed for us that he was well? Because we have misunderstood that performance does not equate to the person.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't equate to the wealth of the person or to the health of the person. And so we think that because somebody performs well. Twitch was not, like he was a DJ, like he was really a fake DJ on Ellen. Like he really wasn't a DJ, but like he was a dancer. He was a dancer. Like, he's used to performing. So when you are used to hitting a stage, and watch this, negating what you feel for the performance and for the sake of everybody else. Here is the thing. People will be okay with, as long as you show up for them, and you could be dying to you. People will allow you to do it, because guess what? As much as people say that they care, what they care more about is, what are you doing for me? I literally, now I told you about the call I had with my best friend early, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm so proud of our relationship and our bond. I got another call. The reason why I was a little late, and I had to apologize to Dr. Kim for my tardiness, but the reason why I was a little late on here is because I had another call from another friend that literally he told his wife, I just need a moment. I just need to go for a drive and clear my mind. And literally, his wife, he's never been caught in anything, never cheated. His wife's like, "No, what you going to do?" And he called me to cry. To cry. I just need a moment. I feel heavy. I don't know what this is. And he doesn't have a strong relationship with God, but he calls me to be like, yo, like, you know, what do I do? Can you just pray for me? I don't know what this feeling is. Can you just pray for me? It's a heaviness that you feel, and you probably need a level of community to push you back into a level of your relationship with God, because you don't want your community to become your God. But I do believe that your community can be a byproduct of your relationship with God, and your community can always point you back to it and hold you accountable to that. So I think on the spiritual side, we need a relationship with God. We need a strong level of community. And then also that community helps us with a strong level of self-awareness.
That's powerful.
We need self-awareness. We need and self-awareness, guys, please hear me when I say this. Self-awareness doesn't mean that you have the right verbiage to say about what you feel, but self-awareness says, I feel something. Then you need somebody to ask you, hey, where is that showing up in you? Does it show up in your stomach? Does it give you headaches? Do you feel sick? Do you just want to lay in the bed all day? Where does that show up? Because it allows us to be aware of what we're feeling. If we need a moment, let's take it. And we're not even used to men taking moments. Now, that's a whole,
That's part two. We need to talk about that. We need to deal with that.
Go. Yeah. We're not used to that. We ain't used to men saying like, yo, like, hey, I need a moment. I need a moment to process this. I just need to sit in silence, or I just need a moment where I sit on the couch and do absolutely nothing.
Right.
We need those moments.
We need those moments. We have a comment. Thank you, Adrian, from Dr. Terry Parks of Atlanta, Georgia. My dear friend, we've done many seminars. Kenny, why don't you read that?
All right. Terry says, men mask their feelings because we are socialized to. We have been taught to be emotionless, hard, distant. Then it gets reinforced by family, peers, and athletic coaches. A Black man showing emotion is much like going to therapy. It's seen as a sign of weakness. Sometimes this lack of emotion can be taught by single women trying to raise a young Black boy. Quote, you are the man of the house. Big boys don't cry. Stop all those tears. You a girl? Boys don't cry. Close quotation.
Comment, Kenny. Comment.
Oh man,
I'm gonna let y'all just
Kenny.
AD, y'all just go back and forth with that one.
Y'all handle that. Yeah.
Y'all go back and forth with that one.
Kenny, Terry, thank you for your comment. Thank you for saying that. We were talking about this earlier, Terry, and you're so right. And we're talking about that the toxic conversations and the toxic vernacular and verbiage in which that we use when it comes to especially Black boys. And we talk about the fact of that phrase, man up, stop being weak, and we look at it as a level of weakness. And we look at it as if a man is honest about what he feels and what's going on with him, we look at it as, oh, well, you're not as strong as I thought you were. Vulnerability is strength. Tears are strength.
Yes.
Like, you have to let these emotions out. I want us to rewrite I want us to undo the toxicity, and I know it's going to take years and years and years because we just didn't stumble into this. This has been going on for years, and we have to get out of that thing of, you know, that little boy being the man of the house. He's not the man of the house. Allow that boy to be a boy. Allow that boy to cry. We should not be telling a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, hey, you're weak if you're crying because he failed. That is strength. Let him cry. Nurture that. Of course, we want him to be a quote unquote man because society is going to try to beat him up when he gets to a certain age. But also at the same time, we don't want that pressure. You want a house that is a safe house. You want a place that becomes a safe place to boys. And I was going to ask Kenny, along with this point of or this comment that Terry so beautifully wrote, Kenny, when you were growing up, did you hear any of those toxic phrases with you? You know, we grew up in 2 different eras. So in your era, you know, you still young now. Don't trip. Because I'm young too. So, you know, I'm asking because I'm like, man, we got so many years to undo. Like, we're learning now, but we got so many years to undo. So, like, did you hear any of those phrases growing up?
I did. And interestingly, I never heard it from my house, but I heard it from the community. I heard it from people who were being picked on. I heard it from people who were perceived as vulnerable. And I always heard this message of, you know, be tough, be strong. That's what guys do. You know, if somebody hits you, hit them back. You know, you get all those kinds of messages to be tough. Don't let anybody take advantage of you. You know, don't let your guard down, you know. And the equation of crying with weakness has always been, I think, just a fatal flaw for so many of us. I have found myself progressively becoming more drawn to the element of crying than wearing the mask because I realized just how healthy it is to purge. And see, here's the other thing too. A lot of people kind of they kind of define crying as this isolated thing that happens. It's almost like a checklist. I get hurt, my emotions are kind of in flux, and then I cry. We're not talking about this sort of linear process that takes place. We're talking about, kind of going back to what AD said earlier, it's a natural response. So when we feel that we want to emote, just like he gave a great example about how we don't make apologies for laughing. Laughing is a spontaneous thing that happens in response to something that humors us. Crying is a natural response to something that draws from some emotional place in our lives as well. We cry when we're happy at times, and we don't typically apologize for crying when we're happy. Yep. But it's the crying of pain that we want to somehow suppress and somehow divert and somehow mask and not talk about and cause to disappear. And that, of course, is a huge problem. I heard the messages, like you said, this is a decades-long thing that's going to have to take a concentrated effort and an intentional and strategic effort to undermine and uproot in our communities because it's deeply and firmly entrenched there, and it is absolutely devastating.
Kenny, I just want to say, man, like it really is. It's devastating, and what I think is that as much as the suicide numbers are on a rapid rise for the African-American male community right now, we're seeing it. And there are a lot of suicidal stories amongst Black men that are not publicized. There was another young Black man that literally killed himself yesterday. He's not famous. Doesn't have followers out the wazoo. You know, he doesn't have the community support and things of that nature. And these numbers are rising. I think that if we continue to remain silent, we are going to continue to aid in a level of dysfunction for our culture and for Black men across the board. And I want to say this: putting an emphasis on Black men's mental health is not to demean Black women's mental health.
Mm.
Not to demean, because I every time I post, like I talk to Micha about this often, like every time I post about Black men, when I launched the journal for the grown A man, which A is a cuss word, okay, but that was and really, when I launched the journal is not just a journal for you to write in. It's over 90 affirmations. It's affirmations, and then it prompts me to write, because I just didn't see myself just writing in a journal. I just didn't see myself just getting, because I never was taught like, oh, just get a journal, write in a journal, write what you think. It asks you questions. For one, it gives you an affirmation. It'll say, you're valuable. Then it'll ask the question, when was a time that you did not feel that you were valued? How did that situation make you feel? What can you do to address it? What are your goals? What ways would you want to be approached? What ways do you want to be loved? We don't even know how we want to be loved, because we're not even that in tune with our own emotions to even teach somebody how to love us, because we're more prone to learn how to love somebody else versus learning how to love ourselves. And I think that that's also a demise, which we have to have in another conversation, a demise to relationships and marriages, because all we're taught to do is to cater to who we're with, and we don't even cater to ourselves, and we don't even understand that the magnitude of the love that which we give is connected to the magnitude in which that we love ourselves. And so when I launched the journal, and it was a play on words, because all my life I was taught that the goal is to be a grown A man. So the reason why I called it the journal for the grown A man is because I had this desire. I'm a grown A man. I was saying it at 16. I'm a grown A man. I didn't know the first thing about being a man, and I'm still learning how to be a man. And it causes me to look at the level of vulnerability in which that I'm willing to be, or the honesty that I'm willing to live in, or the narrative of my own story, and to accept that allows me to be at a place of saying, yo, you know what? This is what makes me a man, is that I'm not apologizing for crying. I am open to share my emotions. I am open to say, hey, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm willing to try to find out. Hey, I don't have this together, but I'm willing to learn. Hey, I'm struggling with this and I don't know what to do with this, but I'm trying to figure it out. But I say that to say that, putting the emphasis on Black men's mental health is not to diminish our African Black queens and things of that nature, is because every time I promote the journal, one of the comments I get often is, well, what about the women's journal? What about, what about the women? What I'm like, y'all have a million journals. Like y'all have a million. You can search women's journal. You got Black journal, you got the Queen Journal of the Morning, you got the Affirmation Journal of the Black Queen, Black Sister, You Are Worth It, and everything else. Like, Black men aren't even taught to voice our emotion, or even our opinion matters. We have toxic phrases like happy wife, happy life. What does that mean? That means to negate what you feel and to just provide, and everything is going to be okay. And that is toxic. So we have to undo all of these colloquialisms, ideologies, to get to a point of saying, hey, it's okay to emphasize the mental health of a Black man, and it doesn't have to diminish the mental health of anyone else or anything else. Like, it's crazy that people talk about that when we say Black Lives Matter, and we like, America's so racist that when we say Black Lives Matter, we think that it means that other lives don't matter. We're just saying that, hey, we just matter. It's the like the most fundamental thing, like, hey, we just want to matter. And guess what? So do Black men.
So do Black men.
So do Black men. We just want to matter. We just want to know, like, yo, like, my emotions are welcomed. Have you asked how I was feeling
today? Right.
We're natural fixers, Dr. Kim. So guess what? If Dr. Kim texts me and she says, oh man, I'm feeling this way, I'm gonna try to go in and be like, hey, Dr. Kim, like what do you need help with? How can I help you? Right. Like, what's going on? We're natural fixers. We're natural fixers. But when is somebody going to step in and say, you know what? Hey, what's up, Black man? How can I help you?
That's right.
And Adrian, let me say this. This is what I do now, and this is nothing but from God. When a man walks in my office, or anyone, but especially my Black men, And now I have Chaldean men coming. I've got Asian men, European American men, and but my African American men. I say, what is my role in your life? What's
Mm-hmm.
my role in this process?
Mm,
How can I best serve you? I'm
mm,
not here to tell you. I need you to tell me what you need from me.
mm,
Then that opens that door of dialogue because somebody cares about what I think. Somebody understands, they really, really want to know what I need. And I'm like, tell me, because this is your moment. And you know what I tell them? I work for you. You've hired me to help you now. And I'm going
yeah.
to give you the best service. We have two more comments. What Al, bring those comments up, please. Sandra King, I almost killed myself because I was
Mm,
told I couldn't cry. My.
Man.
All right. Next comment. My goodness,
wow.
Sandra.
Oh no.
God's pressure release system is a good cry. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Sandra. It
Yeah,
is.
it
So
is.
that's what
It
Mhm.
is.
Adrian.
Pent up tears and what we're seeing, honestly. And Sandru said something else where he said that this no crying goes back to slavery and breaking of the black man. It's so much that, but we can unpack that later. But I will say, Sandru, you are exactly right. Um, but I wanted to highlight the fact that it's God's pressure release system is a good cry. That I think that we have been so fixated on the performance base that we don't even know what it's like to release of our own selves, and we don't check in with our own selves. And what we're seeing is that if we do not release, what happens is we show up to perform, but we begin to implode, not
Mm,
explode, but we
mm,
begin to implode. We are
mm,
dying from the inside out. And hear me, I think that it's, oh man, I think that like years before, what we saw was stroke, heart attack. That was implosion.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's saying before it even gets to this, I'm going to take my life because it's unbearable.
mm. Yeah.
And I don't have a space or a
Yeah.
place where I can stop performing long enough
Yeah.
to just allow myself to be myself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Kenny, we got about 5 minutes. We got to wrap it up. But my question is, I need to do a part two. Let me know because I want to bring this back next week, next Tuesday, part two. All right, okay. We gotta get into relationships and
Yeah.
things like that. All right, Kenny, give me closing remarks. We'll go back to Pastor Ad and then Micah and I.
Yeah. Real quickly, I'll say that I think it's important for us to create a sustained effort to neutralize the stigma of talking about how we feel and masking those real feelings in ways that ultimately impact us in our lives. Uh, we live in a society, unfortunately, today that still does not see mental health counseling as either acceptable, sexy, the right thing to do. There's still I think, an incredible dependence upon the faith community, which I have no problem with because I'm a person of faith myself. I think that prayer is fine. I think that counseling with a pastor is fine. But I always tell people talk to somebody who has the ability to help you and to guide you in the direction that you need to go. Seek out help, affirm the fact that there's value in that, and that a person who has a medical or physical sickness cannot typically heal themselves any more than a person with a mental or emotional illness can effectively heal themselves. There are people with capabilities, resource sets, and skills that can help guide you through the process. Dr. Kim, you're one of those people. I like to think about myself as one of those people. We've gone to school, we've been in this space for decades now, and we've, I think, done our best to help guide people towards a better way of life. It is important for us to help people know that that is okay. That if they're
Mhm.
not feeling okay, if the weight of the world is upon them, and we really didn't get a big chance to talk about some of the social dynamics of life that impact us today. because that's a big part of what drives people emotionally as well. We have a lot of people dealing with economic challenges. We have a lot of people dealing with relationship challenges. We have a lot of people, as AD said, who just don't love themselves and are not in touch with themselves. So there's a whole lot of different social dynamics that are really feeding into this problem as well. And perhaps in part 2, we could talk a lot more about that. But find somebody who you can talk to, find somebody who you can trust, and find somebody who you can be transparent and authentic with, because you got to get down into the roots of this thing. You can't keep it at the surface level. You got to get in there and weed those things out.
For sure.
That's good. That's good. All right. Adrian, your closing.
In closing, I would just want to piggyback off what Kenny said. You're not less than a man because you can't save yourself. And I'll just leave you with this. Biblically, there's a man in the Bible by the name of Paul. Paul, who used to be Saul, wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. Paul asked God, he pleaded with God and begged God, Lord, take this thorn away from me. Paul also is the same Paul where people would cut up his garments and take his garments, and people would buy his garments to heal their family members. They would take a piece of his garment, he would pray over it, they would take that garment into the house, and people would be healed. He would speak languages with people. He would do miracles. This is where Jesus says that greater works will my disciples do. Paul was one of those people that did great works for everybody else, but his gift could not save himself. He went to God and asked God, God, take this thorn away. What do you mean? If you were healing everybody else, surely you should be able to heal yourself, because guess what, guys? Your gift ain't even for you. And it does not make you weak. It does not make you less than a man. This is why you need community. This is the reason why you need a relationship with God. This is why you need strong accountability, because iron sharpens iron. But in order for it to be sharpened, and if iron's going to sharpen iron, it's going to take some level of friction. So we got to be honest about what we feel. And so stop feeling like you're less than a man because you cannot, quote unquote, save yourself. Find community, talk to people, and be honest about what you're dealing with.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
All right, ML6. Oh, this is powerful. Come on.
Everything is not always what it seems. Like, everything is just not always what it seems. People have to understand that social media, and I learned this from Adrian, is a highlight reel. So what people do when they press record has nothing to do with their real life when the camera is not on. So for anyone to get on and say, oh, I can't believe it, he didn't seem like this, everything's not what it seems. Take a step back and realize that these people are human. You don't know what was going on in his family. You don't know what spirit was floating through his family, because suicide, depression is also a spirit. So we don't really talk about that. But everything is just not always what it seems.
Thank you, ML6. I appreciate you. Listen, I love you all. You all have been phenomenal. You know, I'm all about my thing, live to be well. You know, when people see me now, they say, you live to be well, lady. You're the Dr. Kim. Because, again, when my husband died, Al Rogers, who was my marketing director, said, what do you want to do? Where are you going to go? What do you want to see yourself? And I said, just leave me alone. I'm done. I can't do this. And he asked me 3 times, and I said, you know, crying, you know, longing for my husband, longing for my life the way it was. And I said, I'm just trying to live to be well. That was only God. That now that theme has gone national, live to be well. And this is what we want for you. October 14th, 2023. All roads will lead to Detroit, Michigan, with Adrian Davis, Kenneth Anderson, ML6, Dr. Kim, and many other great people here for the Live to Be Well Men's Conference. You need to mark your calendar right now. We need your sons. We need fathers, grandfathers. We're going to pack the place out. And you are going to gain so much. And you're going to gain a community. You know, we're going to pray for busloads to be coming from all over the country so that we can make sure that the men will receive what they need. They say, well, why is a woman putting on this conference? Why not? Why not? But I have a community of great men. You know, you're going to see me for a few minutes, but I turn this over to my two moderators, Adrian Davis and Kenneth Anderson. You know, and then what we're going to be doing is something so phenomenal because we need to live to be well, but we need tools, we need understanding. And my 5 words, let me give you my 5 words that's in my new book. Number one, accountability. Accountability. You don't have to apologize to anyone for feeling your pain. Number two, awareness. And Kenny, you talked about that awareness. Number three, being in a place where you are consistent, consistent with being able to share your feelings and emotions. Number four, compassion. Men, it's all right to have compassion for yourself and for others. And number five, integrity. You don't have to lie about how you feel. You can reveal and not conceal. And then the umbrella for all of that is I'm setting some new boundaries as I go forward to live and be well. That's what we're going to be using at this conference. And we want you there. So October 14th, 2023, second week of October, we will be in Detroit, Michigan. ML6?
Before we get off this live, I really want to make sure that the ladies on this live, that hear this live, the men on this live, get the journal that AD was talking about. It is an amazing journal. I've seen it. I've held it. It's great quality. It allows you to write. It allows you to think. You can go to his website to order it. It is worth the half. If this journal is what will get you through to help you to be able to communicate better, I really suggest, I strongly suggest you purchase this journal. It is an amazing gift, be it Christmas or just a random Tuesday. Get this journal.
Amen. Amen. We're going to make sure, Adrian, too, that our men will have this journal at the conference. All right. They're going to have it. And we're going to make sure that they are prepared and ready. Listen, I want to thank all of you for joining us on Live to Be Well tonight. We also want to thank you for, you're going to come back and watch the replay. God bless you all. Thank you, our YouTube viewers. Thank you for our LinkedIn viewers. You know, and I want to thank my daughter, ML6. Want to thank Uncle Kenny, my dear best friend. Thank you so much. Of over 45 years, all right? And my son, Adrian Davis, thank you so much. Listen, L. Rogers, you are the best marketing producer, director. Thank you so much. Until next week, we're coming back with part 2, and we're going to talk about social dynamics and all the things that fall under helping you to be the man that God has called you to be. And you don't have to mask. There's no reason to be the man behind the mask. Come from behind the mask and live your best life. It is time to live to be well. I'm Dr. Kim. Until next week, ML6, what do we say? Live to be well. God bless you and good night.